There are some stories from the sea that are just so strange, so chilling. They sound like something straight out of a horror movie. And let me tell you, the tale of the SS Aurang Medan is right at the top of that list. For over 75 years, this thing has been one of the biggest, most terrifying unsolved mysteries in all of maritime history. So yeah, let's get right into it.
It all starts right here, with this one final, broken, absolutely horrifying message sent out into the world. Now, this wasn't just some random transmission. This was the beginning of a real-life ghost story that has stumped everyone. Investigators, historians, you name it, for decades.
All right, to really get what happened here, we've got to go all the way back to the start. Back to the moment when a totally normal day at sea was just shattered by a desperate cry for help, broadcast in the one language every sailor understands, Morse code.
So, picture this. We're in the Strait of Malacca, which is the super busy shipping lane between Malaysia and Indonesia. The year is 1948. The weather? Perfect. The sea? Totally calm. Everything looked completely normal. But beneath that peaceful surface, something was going horribly wrong.
All of a sudden, radio operators on a bunch of different ships in the area start picking up this frantic message. And we're not talking about a crackly voice call that could be misunderstood. No, this was Morse code. The message came through crystal clear, and what it said was just horrifying.
Right after that first shocking call, another one came through. This one confirmed the dead and begged for a warship to come help. Then, the operator sent the ship's location, followed by a final, terrifying set of dots and dashes that just spelled out, "I die." And then, that was it. Total silence. The line went dead. Well, the SOS was heard, and help was definitely on the way. The closest ship, which was an American merchant vessel, immediately turned around and started heading for the last known coordinates of the Aurang Medan, fully expecting to find a complete disaster.
So the crew of this American ship, the Silver Star, they're pushing their engines, racing to the scene, probably imagining the worst. A shipwreck, maybe pirates. The distress calls painted a really grim picture, but the reality they were about to find was so much stranger than anything they could have cooked up in their heads. After steaming for hours, they finally see it, the Aurang Medan. And this is where the story takes its first really bizarre turn. The ship wasn't sinking. It wasn't on fire. From a distance, it looked totally fine, just floating there silently. No smoke, no visible damage, and worst of all, not a single sign of life. It was a ghost ship.
So they're hailing the ship, trying to get a response, and nothing. The captain of the Silver Star has no choice but to send a boarding party over to investigate. Let's go with them. Let's step onto the deck of the Aurang Medan and see what they found inside.
The second they set foot on that ship, two things hit them. First, this incredibly unnatural chill in the air, which makes no sense in the tropical heat. And second, death. Everywhere they looked, the entire crew of the Aurang Medan lay dead. But this was no peaceful scene. Every single one of the dead sailors had their faces twisted in just absolute terror, eyes wide open, mouths stretched in a silent scream. It was as if every last one of them saw something completely and utterly terrifying in their final moments. And here it is. This is the detail that takes this whole thing from a tragedy into a complete, enduring mystery. The rescuers checked the bodies, and they couldn't find a single wound. No signs of a struggle, no bullet holes, nothing. It was like they had just died from pure, unfiltered fear.
I mean, the whole scene was just a snapshot of horror. The captain was found dead on the bridge. The radio operator was slumped over his equipment. His finger is literally still on the Morse key he'd used to send that final message. Even the ship's dog was found dead, frozen in the middle of a snarl. And every single body was stiff, with their arms stretched out like they were trying to fight off something nobody could see.
The crew of the Silver Star knew this was something way beyond normal. The plan was to tow the ghost ship to the closest port and let the experts figure it out. But the Aurang Medan, it seems, had one last secret, and it was not about to be discovered.
So just as they're getting the tow lines ready, smoke starts pouring out of one of the lower cargo holds, and within moments, boom, it explodes into this massive fire that just spreads insanely fast. The boarding party had to get out of there, scrambling for their lives, and they barely made it a safe distance away when a huge explosion just ripped the Aurang Medan into shreds, sending it straight to the bottom of the ocean. Just like that, all the evidence was gone.
So with the ship and its crew gone, lying at the bottom of the Strait of Malacca, the only thing left was the unbelievable story from the crew of the Silver Star. And from that testimony, a handful of really compelling theories have popped up over the years.
Now, before we get into the theories, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. Skeptics love to point out that there's no official record of a ship named Orang Medan. But you have to remember, this was right after World War II. It was a chaotic time. Tons of ships were operating off the books, using fake names to smuggle things. So the fact that it's not in the official records, well, that doesn't debunk the story. If anything, it just makes it even more mysterious.
So, what on earth could have happened? Well, it basically boils down to three main theories. First, you've got the lethal cargo theory. Maybe the ship was smuggling some nasty, unstable chemicals, like nitroglycerin mixed with potassium cyanide. A small leak could release a toxic gas, killing the crew instantly without leaving a mark. And that unstable nitroglycerin, that would definitely explain the huge explosion. The second theory, it's much darker. Some people think the ship was connected to Unit 731, the notorious Japanese biological warfare program. What if it was secretly moving deadly nerve agents or biological weapons after the war? A leak would explain those horrific deaths and why the whole operation was so secret. And then, of course, you have the supernatural theory, that the looks of pure terror, that unnatural cold, it all points to something else, something we just can't explain.
And if you thought this was just some old sailor's tale, get this. In 2003, the CIA declassified a file on the Orang Medan. Inside was a letter from 1958 that goes over the whole incident and even suggests it might be the key to solving other sea mysteries. The fact that the CIA, the actual CIA, kept a file in this ghost ship for almost half a century gives a lot of weight to the idea that this was no ordinary ship.
So in the end, we're just left with so many questions. Was it all just a horrible accident with smuggled chemicals? A top-secret military mission that went catastrophically wrong? Or did the crew of the Orang Medan really come face-to-face with some unknowable horror from the deep? The only thing we know for sure is that the truth, whatever it is, went down with that ship, and now it lies forever at the bottom of the sea.